On 1st of August, 5 p.m. 1944, the Warsaw Uprising happened, and a major operation in World War II where the Polish resistance fought against the Nazi Germans occupying Warsaw. As it's also called in Polish, and terrible sorry for butchering this, Powstanie Warszawskie. Yeah, I'm terribly sorry about that. But this is a major operation, and something I have read a bit about, not really much at all. But I do love the song Sabaton made about the Warsaw Uprising. And now we're here today, on this very day, 77 years ago, when the Warsaw Uprising happened. And honestly, that feels just really cool. And I want to thank Nana that suggested me to this and told me about this, because otherwise I would have completely missed this date and everything, because me and dates, I don't, it's like water and oil, it kind of just float by on top and I forget stuff. So thanks to Nana for making this happen. And seeing this though, it's just something I will, before I start, I'm just really, really amazed by the Polish people and all of that, considering how much shit have happened there, you know, with both world wars and all of that, and just in general, and they still right. And it's so funny because Polish people have always been around me, because when I grew up in this town as a kid, one of my neighbors and my best friend in the neighborhood were a Polish family. So I got to hear lots of Polish and stuff like that. So for me, it's like I didn't understand a jack shit. I still don't do, but I thought it was so fun because I got to know so many Polish people over the years, and I think that's amazing. You know, that's awesome, and to see about Polish history like this, you know. And with that, we're gonna let them take over. I remember Joachim, but I don't remember what the other guy is called. I can call him History Man or something like that. Let's go with that. So, let's dive into the Warsaw Uprising.
There are times when the struggle is so monumental that you know you will not win. You know you will not survive, and you know you will not even make great change, and yet you still make that fight.
And our song Uprising is about that.
That is amazing.
This is Sabaton History, and I'm Spartacus Olsen. I'm sitting in for Indy today because the current pandemic has left many of us stuck in different places over the past months and thrown our recording schedule around a bit.
First of all, I would say I love the setting, man. That's a cool dungeon. I want a dungeon like that. Right now, I don't have any settings at all. It's my entire living space in one room here right now. So that would be cool. But yeah, dude, that is something I'm still... I mean, just the fact that the Polish were like... I mean, most of Warsaw was already destroyed. And the country in shambles. And knowing that the Russians weren't helping, because, you know, Russians did Russian things. They were, you know, they were sure the enemy to Nazis, but they didn't really help, from my understanding. And Polish were kind of like just there fighting Nazis, and that's good, you know.
But I'm also the host and lead writer of the subseries War Against Humanity on our World War II channel, where I cover resistance, partisan warfare, war crimes, and crimes against humanity during the Second World War, which are also the topics of Sabaton's song Uprising. Okay, so it's July 1944. The Eastern Front is in motion. German Army Group Center has collapsed in the face of repeated offensives by the Soviet First Belarusian Front, now striking deep into Poland. It is widely expected that capturing Warsaw will be the next thing on the list of the Red Army objectives. With the end of the German occupation literally on the horizon, the leaders of the Polish underground resistance, the Armia Krajowa, or Home Army, meet for a secret meeting. After nearly 5 years of occupation, humiliation, and suffering, the resistance of Warsaw is eager to rise up. Radio calls are made to the exiled Polish government in London, who in turn appeal to the British and American authorities for help. The time has come. The Poles will now fight to take back their capital. However, the Western allies are hesitant to promise help outright. They welcome resistance against the Germans, sure, but they do have logistical problems with the fight in France and Italy in full swing at the same time. But mostly, this is the Soviet theater of war, and they don't want to step on any toes.
Yeah, that was the thing. What I remember, that because the area was under Soviet control, meaning that the airspace, they couldn't just fly in there because it could be seen as sign as war. And that is honestly just really, oh God. Just imagine that you're being the Polish, you're being there, like, okay, now we gathered, we're gonna fight back, but we know if we just go in, we will fight and winless battle, but we will fight nonetheless. And they ask their allies, and even from the very fucking beginning, you know, the allies have been literally like, maybe we shouldn't stress about this. You know, while Poland is just burning, it's actually kind of a shame how just literally everything, every country is like, you know what? How about you guys just stay it cool? And Poland is there like burning. It's like, you know, that's the thing I can. I mean, as I said, I can understand the idea of like, yeah, we don't want to go over the airspace and cause, you know, with Russia, but isn't that literally why you have communication? Like, can't you just, hello, this is Churchill. Hello, Stalin, how you doing? And then Stalin's like, broska bika bruki. I can't speak Russian. Kurva. And then he's like, yeah, no. And that was not even Russian. Sorry about that. You know, and instead they just pretty much left Poland wind for wave, so to speak, and they still somehow managed. And they did, though, send some supplies, right? But still, that it took so long, and man, that is brutal, man. That is brutal. Though then again, I probably shouldn't say anything. I'm from Sweden, and Sweden kind of famously like, you know what? We're not part of this. We're not part of this. No. Though, kind of fun because when you think about it, why didn't they just take over Sweden? Because Sweden were we didn't have a big army really. You know, we didn't have bigger than Norway's or anything like that, and it took Norway. The main reason was because we have lots of mines here, apparently, from what I read at least. And if the Germans try to take over, we kind of like, okay, if you do that, we destroy the mines, and then you won't have any supplies of being able to buy iron or anything like that, because we destroy the mines, and that would take forever for you guys to dig up everything. And they're like, okay, we can leave you there, and then. So, I don't know. It's history, man. It's still fascinating, isn't it? And then the Poles here is like fucking like badassery, like, okay, fuck you, everyone. We're fighting.
So the Poles will have to rely on Soviet cooperation first and foremost. However, the position of the Home Army towards the Soviet Union is one of uncertainty and mistrust, as memories of the pact between Hitler and Stalin that had swallowed and divided Poland are still pretty fresh. If the Poles do nothing, then the Red Army will overrun Poland and the government in exile will be powerless in the newly communist Poland. But if the rising is successful, then Warsaw will be in the hand of democratic Poles. Then they hope that the autocratic Soviet Union can't simply impose its will on Poland, so the Poles have everything to win and everything to lose. However, the Germans still have strong forces in the region. If the resistance rises up before the Wehrmacht there can be wholly engaged with the Red Army, the Germans would most certainly crush them. So the Polish Home Army has to wait for the last possible moment when the Red Army is on the outskirts of Warsaw. Then, with logistical help from the West and cooperation from the Red Army, the insurgents could drive the Germans out of the city. At least one of those two last things has to happen, or the rising is doomed.
Do you remember when the Nazis was ruling on Poland? 1939, and the Allies burned away. From the underground rose a hope of freedom as a whisper. City in despair, but they never lost their faith.
Back in February, the resistance fighters outside of Warsaw had made contact with Soviet Marshal Rokossovsky's spearheads. Rokossovsky agreed to principal tactical cooperation, but refrained from promising anything beyond that. And when the Home Army then begins revealing itself to the Soviets, they are greeted with unexpectedly hostile behavior. The available reports of the NKVD, the Soviet Interior Ministry and Secret Police, paint a clearer picture of the situation. They call the Polish Home Army illegal formations, rebels, and bandits. They are white Poles allied to Great Britain and are an old enemy. See, although they currently fight the same enemy, Polish nationalism is contradictory to Stalin's plan. And of course, it's only been a bit more than 20 years since the Poles won the Polish-Soviet War, and one of the people really responsible for the loss of the Battle of Warsaw back then was Joseph Stalin. The NKVD makes it clear that they will not allow any irregular or partisan actions in the rear of their armies. Soon, any Polish resistance fighters caught behind the front line is arrested, disarmed, and removed. By July, more than 30,000...
Dude, politics sucks, man. Dude. I mean, dude. Literally, like, oh yeah, we can't, comrade, we can't accept you here, and then like, what? I'm fighting against that. Well, you're fighting against our beliefs as well. And I'm like, oh no, shit. Oh, dude, talk about being locked between two different fronts there. My fucking god. Seriously. Though I would say, the Polish that did the uprising, they have balls big as fucking cars. Is that a thing? That big balls.
And Home Army fighters have been interned by the Red Army. Inside Warsaw, the Home Army is caught between the desire for action and the need for caution. The atmosphere in the city is tense, and Pole and German alike feel that something is about to go down. By August, the Soviet front draws close, and while the Wehrmacht prepares to halt Soviet attacks across the Vistula, the Home Army decides to risk everything. On the night of August 1st, groups of armed young men break curfew and gather throughout the city. At 0500, they strike. German trucks are bombed and German patrols gunned down. They storm the railway office, the post office, and the major power station. Most importantly, they capture storehouses, taking German helmets and weapons, camouflage jackets, and even SS uniforms. To distinguish themselves from their enemy, they wear their white and red armbands or eagle insignias. Around 2,500 insurgents fall the first day, and many civilians are caught in the crossfire. But although they are not able to make the police district or the airport, the day is considered a success. They have been able to free many Jews from the SS concentration camp known as Goose Farm, and even managed to capture a tank. Large parts of the city are now under their control, so they must continue the fight until help arrives.
They actually captured tank too. Damn, bro, that's pretty epic. Can anyone drive it though? That's one less tank for enemies, and that's a win. And the man, oh dude, and that's just like rebels, that's doing that against a well-trained machine that is the Nazi Germans, you know? Dude.
They inform London by radio that the fight for Warsaw has begun. On the night of the 4th, the first British bombers are spotted over the skies of Warsaw. The Poles rejoice as crates filled with weapons and supplies are parachuted in. They have not been forgotten by their allies. The Germans, however, are now reacting as well. Anti-insurgency specialist SS Obergruppenführer Erich von dem Bach arrives in Warsaw. He reports back to SS Commander Heinrich Himmler the real scale of the rising, and Himmler flies into a violent rage. He orders von dem Bach to not only crush the insurgency, but to obliterate Warsaw. The home of Polish history and culture is to be liquidated once and for all. The Wehrmacht, however, have their hands full fighting the Red Army, so Himmler orders his own SS troops to Warsaw. What arrives at that city is an assortment of some of the most notoriously undisciplined, criminal, and murderous SS units the Nazis have to offer.
Wow, that's brutal. That's, my God, that's awful. Holy shit. And SS and all that, yikes. And Himmler is like, oh my fucking God, that's a nasty piece of existence that did exist. And all that. And it's luckily that the British and all that started to drop after at least the uprising happened. But yeah, you know, it feels so bad. Like, oh, okay, now we see actually guys can't succeed. So okay, we drop a little. Here, have some toys. You know, still, I mean, it's very important that they get the equipment and the loot, everything. You know, it just said it needed to push so much before it actually happened. So, you know, but still, seeing them rising, and then the SS, oh, dude, and the nasty ones. I thought all of them were nasty. How nasty are those that are nastier than the normal nasty SS? Dude, it's gonna be super nasty. Is that what it means? SS?
The SS Brigade Dielewanga, the Russian SS Rona Brigade, Cossack and Azerbaijani auxiliary regiments, several Einsatzgruppen and military police units. And for a few days, these units take Himmler's orders literally. Fighting the insurgency almost becomes a secondary objective as they kill every man, woman, and child in sight and systematically set their homes on fire. Tens of thousands of people are slaughtered. It becomes so bad, with so many reports of rapes and looting, that von dem Bach has officers shot to try and rein in the men. He has to issue orders to not summarily shoot women and children anymore. The city becomes an urban battlefield.
God. Dude. Jesus Christ, that's off. My God.
Loudspeakers urge the insurgents to give up before they are all killed. The Luftwaffe and German artillery bombed the rebel districts, but the insurgents prove resilient. They hide in Warsaw's deep cellars and use the destroyed buildings to entrap the enemy. They lure them into killing zones where snipers and grenadiers await them. The ruined city denies the SS their numerical advantage, and after 2 weeks of fighting, neither side has that advantage. The Poles fight from the street barricades and fortified cellars connected by trenches and sewers. Women and children work tirelessly in underground kitchens, hospitals, and makeshift workshops. Days turn to weeks. By the end of August, though, even as the spirit of the insurgency is still high, the outside world is eerily quiet.
Women, men, and children fight. They would die in side by side. And the blood they shed upon those streets was a sacrifice willingly paid.
Even contemporary German sources expect the Soviets to try to link up with the insurgents as quickly as possible. The Red Army advances towards the Baltics and the Balkans, but not on the Vistula. Winston Churchill is among the first to make the assumption that this pause during the most critical moment of the rising, where any Soviet attack might have tipped the scale, is deliberate. Okosovsky stands just 20 kilometers away from Warsaw. How come, since the end of July, not one Soviet aircraft has been seen flying over Warsaw? No drop has been made, no shelling of German positions. Did Stalin condemn the rising to its fate? For historians, it's impossible to know Stalin's exact inner motives. Many of the records regarding Poland are still sealed tightly in Russian archives. Reliable intelligence was certainly scarce, and the reports from the NKVD portrayed the insurgency as a reckless adventure by a gang of criminals and bandits. Polish nationalism has no place in Stalin's great strategy. The British will...
Dude, authoritarians is just, oh my god. It's just my way or to die. My god. And imagine with all that they still fought like that. You know? And that's amazing. To have that courage to do that. And the strength to do that. Knowing how many that have died over the latest years, just over this fucking war. War is so fucking... My God. And the worst is, this is not long ago. You know? 80 years ago. I mean, I wasn't alive then, but there are people that still are alive that were there. Not many today, but still. And it's just fucking awful.
Cancel their airlifts as well because of the inefficiency of sending planes from Italian air bases 1,300 kilometers away. There are actually over 200 US Air Force planes stationed in Poltava, but Stalin denies them airspace over Poland. Inside Warsaw, losses are heavy on both sides. The Germans have been forced to reinforce the SS with crack units like the Hermann Göring Panzerdivision, and slowly but surely the insurgents are pushed back into the city center. Fighting continues unabated in the cemeteries, the suburbs, and the former ghetto, but by September the situation grows desperate. They have held out far longer than expected, but they cannot win a battle of attrition. Down to a quarter of their fighting strength, and with food and medical supplies dwindling, negotiations for surrender begin. But just then, in mid-September, the Soviets suddenly attack the eastern outskirts of Warsaw. It is General Berling's army, made up of Polish communists and collaborators, who attack the German garrisons. Soviet planes now drop supplies, and Soviet artillery shells the city. All surrender negotiations are broken off, and the Polish spirits rise. Volunteers swim the Vistula to greet their allies. But they never return. Reports soon reach the Home Army that those volunteers are arrested and interrogated about their holdouts and their officers, and some are even tortured and shot. Berling's attempt is not the long-awaited Soviet offensive. Rokossovsky does not move, and the insurgency is doomed. On September 18th, a large fleet of flying fortresses make one last supply run. But it is too late. Nearly all of the crates parachute into German territory as the insurgents are by now pressed into a small area in the city center. Left with only a handful of blocks and streets, the Home Army has no real choice. They can either surrender to the Nazis, who will probably murder them, or try to escape to the Soviets, who will likely turn on them as well. The final shot of the uprising is fired on October 2nd. It has lasted 63 days. Civilians and insurgents alike are arrested and sent to concentration camps. The ruins of the western part of the city are now once again occupied by the Germans. In the east, just across the river, the Soviets stand and watch. Poland, once again, is divided between the Germans and the Soviets, but not forever, for the old words ring true. Jeszcze Polska nie zginęła, póki nie śpiemy. Poland is not yet lost as long as we live.
You know, we've talked about a lot of stuff from...
Dude, it gave me the shivers, oh god. But seriously, considering what kind of resistance they made, how they fought, imagine if they got support from the beginning. They would have turned, and so many more, like, oh, that's all. And that's so fucking sad. You know, they could turn this around, and they stood up, but no one heed their call. You know, no, they got some supplies from the British, but that's it. And the Russians, they were like, yeah, you know, you're our enemies as well. I mean, and I mean, in the view of Russia, I can understand them. Like, yeah, Poland is not our ally. Like, then it's better they and the Germans kind of like fight each other out. So that makes sense. It's awful and just really incredible fucking shitty. But dude. Man, dude, it's awful. Holy crap. War is awful, man. War never change.
Different songs of yours that have to do with the Second World War, because you have a bunch of them and stuff. And you've met people and relatives, like Audie Murphy's relatives and stuff, Helen Back and stuff. Did you guys ever meet anybody that actually had anything to do with the uprising itself?
Yeah, several actually. I remember the first couple of people we met. Obviously, we're talking about people who are really old, quite possibly dead now. This was back in 2010. A lot got lost in translation. It was an emotional experience, but it was really hard because, you know, speaking through a translator at a museum, we were at the Warsaw Uprising Museum, but a few days later, we were still in Poland then, we heard of a woman who had fought in the uprising. Her name was Anna.
Wow.
And she had moved to Sweden, actually, after everything happened there.
At the end of the war.
At the end of the war. But it was really one of those moments that I will never forget in my life, because we were speaking Swedish.
Yeah.
Old people in Poland, for obvious reasons, aren't very good at English.
Yeah, they're not very good at Swedish in general.
Yeah,
either.
but she lived in Sweden from, I guess, somewhere in the 40s until 2006, I think it was, or 2009.
Went back.
So she just recently moved back when her husband died, I think it was.
Okay.
And speaking with her and her experiences, and it is so far away from the action movies and everything. I mean, her main role in the uprising, being a young woman, or a young girl maybe, wasn't, you know, frontline combat. Right. But of course, she had to. They captured a tank, a German tank. I can't remember if it was a Leopard or something. They actually captured it.
Very cool.
Yeah. And the story she would tell, it is nothing like the movies. Her stories of, delivering messages through the sewers and how cramped and tiny it was. I have no idea how it was, but at the Warsaw Uprising Museum in Warsaw, they have sort of reconstructed those sewers so you can walk through them. And they start out pretty big, then they get pretty small, and you can, you know, try and, you know, how they would move.
See how you could get, how far you could do it.
Oh man, if you're even slightly claustrophobic, you're fucked.
Yeah, and dude, and imagine while you crawling like that, and you can hear and feeling explosions above, you know, like artilleries, tanks, and the good bomb drops or whatever, and knowing that there was a risk that maybe everything collapsed. Oh my fucking god, that's. I mean, I'm not claustrophobic per se, but being like that.
Her tale how such an obviously extreme circumstances, living under those circumstances, and still life goes on.
That's, you know, I'm glad that you put that out here, that it's not that the Warsaw Uprising or any war or any combat that you sing about and that we talk about is not what it looks like in the movies, because I think people misunderstand that, and I think people lose track of that this is the stuff we talk about on this channel and the stuff that they sing about. It's very interesting, and it's important to remember these things for a variety of reasons, but it's not cool.
Nope.
It's not what you see in the movies. The movies, they want you to watch the story, great, but they also have to give you entertainment value, and war is not entertainment value. It's not.
Yeah, and that's the thing with the movies like that. They actually bring up good points about that. They glorify it, you know. They glorify, not always obviously, there are many movies that are really, really sad. And as I said, it's about entertainment. A movie is not a documentary. A documentary is supposed to be educational and sometimes also entertaining, but generally educational. While movies are supposed to be like, heroic and great deeds, but wars aren't like that. We can only just and I mean, as someone like me, I've never been in war. I've never been in a zone and in a place where war happens. So I can only fathom what someone that is in a war zone feels and what they've gone through, what's happening, And I can see movies like, or games. That's nothing, That's not how it really is. And I can only read, I can only study, and can get then an empathy for what it is. But you really don't understand it until you are yourself in it, At least what I think.
Cool.
No, it's so much boredom. I mean, how fun would it be a movie about World War I? Somebody getting sick in a trench, going back to a hospital, going back to the trench, taking one step up, dead.
And that's your video game, and that's 3 weeks you've been playing the game, and that's your first time over. Well,
Pretty much.
think of even some people we've covered, like Simo Heihe, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Finnish sniper.
he would spend days iced in with ice to make a there's nothing exciting or romantic about that. It is specifically mechanical, and it is specifically you can overcome the boredom. I couldn't. I'd have to pee. I would. I'd have to pee at some point,
But in a sense, I mean, I'm not comparing a warrior's life to what we are doing.
Yeah.
However, there is one similarity. What we are doing as musicians is sort of the Hollywood version, because what you guys see is us going on stage or hearing the album.
Yeah.
You're not seeing the rehearsals, you are not seeing the songwriting, the retakes, all of that. I'm by no means drawing the comparison, but it's a natural thing.
No,
I mean, no movie would be interesting if it was like the trenches in World War I, I think.
You're right, but people, especially with World War I and World War II, people say, what's the most realistic video game, or what do you think would be the most realistic? The most realistic video game is that you spend 3 or 4 weeks hastily training as an 18-year-old or a 17-year-old who lied about his age in England and stuff, and you get sick and you meet some new people and you hurt yourself, and then you go and you get another 3 weeks and you rotated through the lines and stuff, and you get killed in the first 20 seconds.
Probably, I mean, for example, World War I there. I mean, the trench wars, so like Battle of Verdun and stuff like that. It's so awful. And that's also something I like Joachim bring up there. And now not about the war or anything like that, but about creation. I talk about that actually quite a lot, because it's easy to see when you've seen great artists, like, wow, they just brought out this painting, like, wow, amazing. Like, wow, they also incredible talent. But we don't see all the work and all the years to get to that point. The same with like Sabaton and the music. Like, I mean, there was a lot of work for that song and many years before they got to that point, And it's easy to be like, kind of like, oh, I kind of didn't see this coming. Like, wow, it's amazing. They're so incredible. They are like born with this, but no one is, They work hard to get there.
And then you have to start the game all over. And you've just spent like 8 weeks playing that character. And that's as far as you got.
And you're lucky because you get to start over.
That's true.
They didn't.
That's true.
Wow.
That's
well, you know what? This episode, it is a hard-hitting episode. And to her, to Anna, and to all the other Annas, and all the other uprisings that were literally hopeless situations, but were still illustrative of the depths of the human spirit. Way to go.
All right, everyone. Thank you very much for watching, and thank you so much for the support with the community. All the Patreons, everyone who's helping, sharing this. We really love doing this, and thanks to you, we can keep on doing it. So keep on doing what you do, and we will keep on doing what we do. Thank you.
Yeah. Seriously, this is... Sabaton presented by Per Sundström, Astrid Deinhard. Seriously. This is amazing. I fucking love this because we get such in-depth with history, and that is something I really, really like because I like history, I love music, I love metal. I've been listening to Sabaton for many years, and it's thanks to Sabaton in a way that it piqued my interest in certain aspects of the wars and stuff like that that I haven't heard in school. Because I mean, it makes sense because in school, if you was gonna study all about World War II, for example, that would take many years, and you get like a basic like an understanding how about the fascist regime of the Nazi German rising and what not happened and all, but all this other stuff we never got to learn. And listening to Sabaton really get me like, oh man, I need to check about this. And then we have videos like this that really just, I love to see that. And I just love to see like and learning about this, because this is so much things that happen. And as I said, this is not long time ago. This is not about the epics of Gilgamesh happening 2000 BC or something like that. This has happened 80 years ago. You know, 80 years ago is still quite a long time, but it's still not that far off. And what terrifies me and makes me really sad is that the rise of fascism today, you know, we still have such an uprise of that. And that's just terrifying, you know. We still have all these memories. We still have so much that reminds of what it brought us. And still people are falling for fascism all over again. And that is just sad. You know, that shouldn't happen, but it still happens at all that. It's just terrifying. How much hatred people can have in them, you know. Before I'm cutting this video, I want to tell you all about this photo you see here right now. Because watching Warsaw Uprising really reminded me of this, and I felt like I want to tell you guys about this story because it's not a very known story and all that. Even in Sweden, because it's a very local story and all that, but got kind of famous a few years ago. And it's the woman with the handbag. It was taken in 1985, and it's about this woman with a handbag hitting a neo-Nazi on the head, as you can see. And the photo was taken just at that moment, because, you know, it was about marching neo-Nazis in the 80s. And this woman, Danuta Danielsson, was born in Warsaw, Poland. And her family was of Jewish Polish heritage, and her mother, from what I'm understanding, were actually a survivor of the Holocaust. And she herself, when this march happened, obviously outraged by neo-Nazis marching, struck the neo-Nazi in the head. And this is quite story though, because after this image, Danuta herself hate that this image became quite famous and all of that, because she didn't want to be remembered for that, and it was also many other things, because she was fearful for her life, because, you know, neo-Nazis are not famous for being kind people. And even so, it became quite an image, you know, about this woman, her family that had been surviving the Holocaust and all that, and stuff like that, striking a neo-Nazi. And the thing is also because in a few years ago, I'm gonna see what was said here, statue. A local artist made a statue about Danuta in Växjö. But it was decided against it for two reasons. The first one was because Danielsson's surviving family, Danuta's family, reported that it would be unhappy with Danielsson being memorized in such manner that, that's striking, which I personally wouldn't feel like would be unhappy with, because especially what she was pretty much hitting, But it was also because the city council, was concerned that the statue would be interpreted as promoting violence. And I will be the first one to say, I'm generally not against violence, but neo-Nazis. That was what the statue, what she literally hit, what she was against, neo-Nazis. You don't talk about, I'm sharing on a different hockey team or anything. You literally talk about neo-Nazis. Neo-Nazis, they are evil people, You know that they literally want dead people. Also, interesting enough, the man hit by Danuta, it was identified as Seppo Seluska, a militant from the Nordic Realm Party, later convicted for the torture and murder of a gay Jew. So yeah, this image is pretty freaking loaded, and personally, I cannot. With her family, of course, it's and what Danuta herself will and all that, obviously, but still, the very fact that she did this, the courage to actually strike, because I would say and I would say this: neo-Nazis should have no right to spout the rhetorics. It's harmful. It's dangerous. It actively hurts and kills people. It is a dangerous ideology, and it's so sad to see that stuff like this, fascism, is still growing today. And that is why I wanted to bring this up, especially since she herself was from Poland, and her family were like survivors of the Holocaust and like that. It just brings me like thinking that it's 2021 and there are still people like this out there, neo-Nazis, fascists that thinks that that are people that are subhumans, and you might be like, oh, but you think neo-Nazis are subhumans? Yes, because they think others are subhumans. I think there's a vast difference. It's like when people using so much for the tolerant level. Yeah, I won't be tolerant of intolerance. It's not how it works, And yeah, I'm terribly sorry that I'm going a little bit political here right now, but the entire thing is kind of political in anyways, And I just wanted to share about you guys about this. It's not much information, but it's still very interesting. So if you guys are interested to learn more about this, you can Google the woman with the handbag, and you get about this story. And I think it's still a very important story, and showing that, you shouldn't be quiet when neo-Nazis, and I don't talk about right-wingers here, like, even if I don't agree with them, they do have the right, but I mean specifically neo-Nazis, Nazis, really evil people. And even if they don't have themselves done the crimes, I mean, it's obviously what they are wanting and what they're doing. So I think it's very important that we can be able to identify and stand against that. I myself is incredible left-leaning, which probably some of you realize me being very supporting trans people, supporting BLM, supporting LGBT and all of that, all these parts. I'm a very open for about people being able to live and support them for who they are. Except neo-Nazis. Fuck them. I have to say. That's not even... No. And yeah. So with Warsaw Uprising, we also get a little bit... you guys get a little bit of an extra history about this. woman with a handbag, Danuta Danielsson, that in my opinion did something incredible brave, because especially now knowing that the fucking Nazi she literally hit was a convicted, later convicted for torture and murder, you know? Fucking terrifying. That's more balls than I ever had. Definitely. So, yeah. I will leave links to Warsaw Uprising in the description as well. I will leave a link in this in the comments as well about the woman with the handbag, the Warsaw Uprising. Watch them, learn from them, and I hope people do. You know, when people say we learning from history, but there are so many people that don't do that. They see like all this and they're like, yeah, fuck yeah, like I'm gonna become a fascist. Like, why on earth would you want that? Why on earth would you want that? Oh my god, I'm sorry. I am very anti-fascist. If you're accidentally a fascist, I wonder, do you need a hug? I wonder. Well. And of course, thank everyone for watching. I'm terribly sorry for going on a tangent like this, but I personally think this is a very important thing to be able to talk about and to be standing up against, you know? And with that, I will be back with other stuff from the channel. So thank you for watching, and thanks to Nana for suggesting this to me. And I just think this is really, really important. So, yeah. Thank you, everyone. See you later. And I'll continue super great day. Except neo-Nazis. Go fuck yourself.